With the change in seasons comes the need to prevent any potential pest problems. I caught up with Nathan from Bloom Pest Control to see what we all should be looking for this fall.
Now it's time for Open House, sponsored by Pyramid Heating and Cooling.
Hey guys, it's fall and it's time to think pest control, and I got my buddy Nathan, Bloom Pest Control. Thanks for coming out to the house, brother.
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad to be here.
I know, I got my vent covers in right now because
Sure.
it's that time of year, which I kind of do that. But what are you suggesting here? Of course, we got our typical spiders this time of year.
Yeah, normal. Well, as you look at that, we can see that the vent itself is kind of buried below grade. And for the health of the home, one of the things you can do is pretty simply install a vent well. You can pick those up at your local hardware store.
Okay.
And that way your vents will work properly to vent your crawl space.
Yeah, because we're kind of buried
How
in
long
here
has
now.
it been in there?
I never took them out last year, so, see if they come out of here.
Maybe a little persuasion with
A little persuasion with a screwdriver might do it.
I think so. Even a small hole or a small gap in the vent can create an issue where you might have rodents get into your crawl space. So what I like to do is I like to actually fill up in here where you can't always see. And so as a good example, this screen is perfect.
Nice.
So you're good on that one. But these, sometimes you'll see these if you're on your home and it'll be, a corner will be chewed out. And that's how you know if there's a rodent that might be getting into your crawl space. Obviously, if you were going to put in a vent well, you would, they come in like rounded versions or square versions. I personally like the square version because it's tighter up against the house, and because some of your eaves on the house are
non-existent.
You just don't want to create an opportunity for rainwater to get into the crawl space through the vent screen. So I like to keep it tight, but it's still functional for allowing air exchange from your crawl space to the outside. Ideally, the vent well is the purpose of it is to keep that functioning correctly and keep air exchange in your crawl space, so you don't have, it helps reduce the likelihood of mold.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, as you know, in my house, I've been doing a lot of remodeling on. I keep finding these places where carpenter ants have come in and chewed up small areas where, they've gotten in and really started to get into framing and stuff. Luckily, it hasn't something where I've had to reframe it, but it can be a problem. What do you suggest with carpenter ants?
Well, like with any insect, carpenter ants, if you look at their behavior, they're going to be most active in the springtime. It's basically a visual identification of them because it's really hard to find them inside your wall unless you can hear them, and that's pretty rare. So they can go unnoticed for a long period of time. Some of the things you can do is you can take, if you have stored wood on the side of your house, such as firewood, separate that from the house, put it in a shed, or at least not on the house itself, because that's what we call a conducive condition to you're kind of inviting them. You're saying to them, hey, we're kind of giving you an entree right here. And then they're like, oh, here's a nice warm house where we can set up our home. And so that's a couple of things you can do as a preventative. One of the things you can do as a preventative measure. Also have your vegetation, if you have ivy or low growing vegetation, you can just kind of keep that away from the edge of the house, because that too is like a carpet for them to come on in.
Nice.
And so,
all right, brother, so we got my firewood out here.
Good place for it?
Yeah, it's not up against the house like you were saying. One of the things I noticed is when I was moving this last time, because it was over on the other side of the house on the deck, that I noticed animal droppings and stuff inside. Could have been anything from a large rat to a rabbit. I couldn't tell what it was.
Right.
What do you do about that kind of stuff?
Well, it's hard to do anything on the outside of your home because they're just going to roam wherever they roam. Okay. So I think the most important aspect of this, if you to protect the home. Yeah. So out here, your yard looks great. It's you don't have anything that's really pressing up against the house. Your trees are off the house, so you're doing what you can to manage the environment around your home. For something like, if they're getting in the wood pile, I think they're just going to keep on doing that unless you want to put it indoors where there's not an access to it. But mainly, what a goal is just that we have to live with the animals that we live with out here in the Northwest, but the goal is to keep them out, and so we can stay in and they don't come and take up residence without paying rent.
So what are some great tips for people to take away for, fall cleanup around here? Because everything's trying to move inside, it seems.
Yeah, trying to stay warm, right?
Right.
Yeah,
just like what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, first thing is check all your vent screens on the lower part of your home along your foundation. Okay. If there's a hole maybe the half inch or greater, that would be a item to possibly put on your repair list. Plug it. We don't recommend foam, because foam is just typically a short-term fix, because they'll chew back through that if it's a rodent.
Gotcha.
If you look up, as you move up the house and you look up higher, not particularly on your house, because you have, I don't see any real vent screens, but if you vent soffit screens, that's where you might, an animal might want to move in, such as a
squirrel
or maybe even a raccoon. It depends on how big the hole is.
Gotcha.
So I think the number one tip is just be aware of what's happening in your house. Take a minute to walk around, and if you have some landscaping to do, cut back with the idea that for the next year's growth, that it's not setting on the house.
Got it.
And that'll help also manage being able to view the foundation if you got ants that are coming up maybe in the springtime, and or animals that might be moving around the foundation of your home. But,
sounds good, man. Thanks for the tips today.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate it. Where do people find more about you guys?
You can find us at bloompestcontrol.com or bloomcrawlspaceservices.com.
Nice, man. Well, thanks for coming out to my house and giving me some tips myself. I always appreciate it.
Sure, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank
Thanks.
you. All right, guys, there's some great tips. Pay attention around your house. It could make a difference.